try to provoke things. Um, so can we get the lights down a little bit? I'd rather have my work look good than me. Um, Water is so important to us physically, environmentally, it politically is very powerful. But water is also essential to our spiritual side. As JD mentioned, Jung. In psychology, water tends to represent the unconscious. In religions, it's used to represent rebirth and spirituality. And water appears throughout mythologies, all mythologies, for so long. So water has a very, very powerful connection to us as human beings, connecting to our spirit. So, as JD said, I've been working with essentially the same series for the last 3 decades, which is why I like to start with this quote here. You cannot step twice into the same river, for other waters are ever flowing onto you. And I've really found that to be true. Even though I keep photographing the same thing over and over again, I keep finding new things to see, and it's really been exciting. Water is not really my subject, though. It's my medium. My subject is the human form. So you're going to see some unclothed beings here. Um, but I've been photographing this combination for many years. This image was taken in the early 80s, and it's upside down from the way that I show it. All the images that I'm going to show you are unmanipulated. They're all seen through the camera this way. It's no working with Photoshop or manipulating in the darkroom. It's all working with water and kind of the magical qualities of water. So it's upside down. So this is where everybody in the audience kind of goes like that. This is the person who's partially submerged in the water. This is a figure behind her who is reflected on the surface of the water. But I turned it upside down because the second figure at the top becomes much more prominent when it's positioned like this. And I see this second figure here as controlling her. She's unaware of this figure. And that's the way I feel in this creative process, that there's something guiding me, intuitive process, unconscious processes. But it's taken me years to realize that this slide that I made in the early 80s is really a representation of the creative process that I experience. This is also in a stream, and this is where the water is rushing really fast, and we've got bright sun coming down, and it makes it look like fire. And I see this as like a comet that's racing through space, and maybe there's this crackling static energy as she breaks through a membrane. Water has taught me so much about seeing. So this is an image that I shot as a horizontal, and I turned it as a vertical. Horizon lines mean nothing to me. So this is the line of the water right here. And I have 3 layers that I'm working with. I have the face out of the water, which shows all of the texture of the skin. This is the reflection of this, and then the body under the water. So I have these 3 layers that I'm working with, and these 3 layers have really has been what I've been studying for all of these years. You can see that the body under the water is kind of romanticized, and things are kind of full and buoyant that they might not be otherwise. So it's these 3 layers that has kept me fascinated for the last few years. Water acts like a lens. The optics of water are amazing. So I'm shooting in a hot tub at this point, and you can see that the arm and the body, the legs that are under the water, have become thin and stretched out. And that's all a relationship of the camera lens to the surface of the water. So it stretches out the body, but the hand and the toes that are out of the body are in a whole different scale. So with this technique, I can exaggerate different parts of the body. The late Italian Renaissance painters called the Mannerists did this. They would exaggerate different parts of the body to exaggerate different expressions. The most famous one is Michelangelo's David, where the hand that's going down his side is a little bit too long, and his hand is a little bit too large. And what that does is it gives the sense of strength and power. So with this technique, I find that I can start to play a little bit with space. So here is the same situation. The only thing I've changed is the camera angle. And now it's the opposite. So what's underwater has become magnified, and what's above water becomes much smaller in scale. And so I can really start to play with spatial illusions with water. And things change so quickly underwater. When I move my camera just slightly this way or that way, everything changes, and the relationship of all of the layers change. So water has really taught me to look and be very vigilant when I'm photographing, really to follow my eyes. Um, Joseph Campbell said that the eyes are the scout of the heart. And what I take that to mean is that our eyes are leading and bypassing our thinking, going right into the heart, which is the soul, the seat of our emotions, our feelings, our intuition. And so we go directly to that place when we lead our eyes with our eyes. And I found that to be very true. When my eyes lead, I go into a very intuitive place, and I'm not thinking. Oh, I'm going to go out and make a picture of, a head on a stick. Um, but I find this image, and I respond to it, and then later I look at it, and I look at the eyes. They're not seeing out, but they're not her attention's turned in, and it's like she's in a transcendent state to another level, maybe to an unconscious level. Um, this is simply working with reflections, and I've lined it up so that the tree branches are going right between her eyes. Um, and I see this as she's existing in the pool of the collective unconscious. She's interacting with the collective unconscious. Here I decided to simplify. And again, it's using water. I'm using just the layer that's under the water at this point. So I'm working at night. I have a light in the water, an underwater light in the water. And so what's above the water doesn't show. You don't see anything above the water because there's no light on it. If you did, you would see her back, her head, the rest of her arm, but it doesn't show up. But the line of the water now becomes the way um, to reform the body. So now I'm looking at the body for line and form and shape. Here, starting with this very point, coming in, and you can see that this is, it looks like vaporous material. It's not solid. But as the arm comes around here, the hand becomes very three-dimensional and very solid. And I see this as a hand that's coming out, maybe being born through the ether. So in the mid-90s, I realized that I really had to go underwater to examine these different effects. But this is the point where I confess to you that I had a fear of water, and had since I was a little kid. So I started off with a pool that was only about 3 feet deep. So if I started to feel like I was drowning, all I had to do was stand up, and that helped a lot. But it was so cool what was happening under the water. It's probably opposite of what you're thinking. All of this is underwater. This is the line of the water here. This is the reflection of this, and this is the face out of the water. So you can see the refraction that happens at the surface of the water can really lift the face apart from itself. This is the hand here that's out of the water, and this is the back of the hand that it's attached to. And I can control all of this stuff with camera angle. So you can see here, this is the line of the water. I have really a complete reflection creating the figure here. And I see that line as a metaphoric scar, but it's a scar that she's not ashamed of. She's accepted it. She's wearing it with a sense of acceptance of her experiences. And this is also a reflection here. So I can make a reflection, all camera angle, I can make a reflection full like this, or, oops, other way, or I can condense it down like this so it becomes almost like a bead of neon that runs around the body. Uh, the water is going right through her mouth, so her jaw is reflected up here. So she's giving a real belly scream here. And this is my ode to Francis Bacon, the British painter. The meniscus from underneath the water is so much more apparent than it is from above the water. And that's what we're seeing here, the meniscus. And what it does is it makes the quality of water appear as if it's like liquid silver or some kind of liquid metal. And I have one person underneath the water, and this is his reflection on the surface, and this is another person breaking their face into the water. So I've lined the two up, and when I'm feeling optimistic, I feel like he's inhaling his soul. If I'm feeling not so optimistic, he's exhaling his soul. Oops. Um, so Aldous Huxley in The Doors of Perception talked about how we block out most of the sensory information in the world, because if we didn't, we would be overwhelmed all of the time and wouldn't be able to function socially or physically. So he said that there were three ways that you could get a view of the world without these filters, he called them, or valves. And one was through hallucinogenic drugs, but this was the 70s when he was doing this. Another was through a spiritual experience, and the third was through a creative experience. And really, everything that I'm showing you here exists in the world. I didn't make any of this stuff up, but I am observing it. I am seeing it. I trained my eyes to see it. This reminds me of why it might not be a bad idea to still be scared of the water sometimes. Oops. Can you guess what it is? So this is the line of the water, the tongue, teeth, and a reflection of that. This was a dentist who wanted to model for me. So all of these are really illusions, working with the water. This is a reflection of this, and this is the hand in the waters. So the illusion is that there's this full-grown being coming outside of the person. Plato said that everything deceives also serves to enchant. And I love working with illusions because it does take us to another level of response and interpretation. So in I guess it was about 2008, I decided that the rest of the photography world was going ahead of me. So I went from film to digital, and I started experimenting with color. And it was really exciting because the first thing that I saw was that what's underwater is rendered in cool tones, and what's above water is rendered in warm tones. And that's because water absorbs all of the colors that aren't blues and greens. And so I found this completely new way of looking at this subject that I'd been dealing with for so many years. I heard a poet say once that many artists only deal with one or two subjects throughout their lives, which sounds pretty limiting. But if you think that as we go through life and change, and we fall in love, we change, we lose someone we love, we change, as we experience the world, we change. So to look at the same thing, but to look at it with eyes that are continually changing and continually growing makes so much sense, which is why I've been so intrigued for so long. When I revisit these subjects, I truly see them in new ways. I feel that it's my job as an artist to make sense of the visual elements in front of me, and allow the poetry to happen, not make it, not force the poetry. If I force it, it looks corny and trite. This is an interesting photograph to me, because this is a reflection of this person. So it's the same person, but they have such different expressions on their face. Uh, so he has this kind of tender looking down, but very much in control. But his reflection looks so vulnerable and giving into the other person's control. Um, Obviously, a narcissistic image. So this is another quote that I've been dragging through life with me that I love. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes, which has really been my experience, is learning to see, letting the water teach me how to see, and and I'm so happy that water is around. Thank you.